The 15-Point Plan is part of the Win, Make, Give podcast network.
Hello, 15-Point Planners. This is Jacqueline Smith and my co-host, Ryan Gregg. Welcome to today's episode. And as always, we hope that this conversation will help bring you ideas and implementable items. Is that a word, Ryan? That you can use to increase your energy and decrease your stress. That is why we're here. Ryan, do you want to say hello to everyone?
Yeah, hello everybody. 100% Jacqueline. Implementable is a word, and if it's not, we made it up because today we're going to talk about implementable strategies from the 15-Point Plan that will help you increase your energy and reduce your stress level. And Jacqueline, I don't know about you, but I just feel, and we probably talked about this, that there's a lot of stress right now. You and I are in the real estate industry. There's been major changes going on in the real estate industry. There's a lot of noise in the real estate industry. And we also understand that many of our listeners are involved in real estate, but not all of them. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to compare a little bit the noise in the real estate industry to just the noise in general.
Yeah.
And how that noise, AKA that influence, can really, really impact us in negative ways if we're not careful. So today's episode is really diving into the noise that's going on in the world, a little bit about the real estate industry, but also just that noise in general and how we can protect ourselves in the times where we just frankly feel like we want to quit, right?
Yeah, I mean, right now, I think always when you were saying like right now there's a lot of noise, a lot of stress, a lot of change, I'm like, when isn't there, right? Yeah. And I saw something the other day somewhere, I don't know, a post or something, and it said something about the problem is that you expect not to have problems. And if we can reframe how we look at things, we can help maybe look at stress from a new perspective and look at change and problems from a new perspective. But the main thing that got us thinking about all this is, just we are in real estate. And I know not everyone listening is, but there's a lot of change going on right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. And like Ryan said, there's a lot of noise. And I can pick up my phone and scroll on Instagram or Facebook and see all sorts of things that just honestly, gives me anxiety. It doesn't add anything positive to my life. It's, not helping me focus on what I can control. It just kind of puts all these scary what ifs in my mind. And I know that a lot of my friends are going through that right now. And so we wanted to have this conversation, not just for real estate, but I think there's a lot of parents, parenting kids these days is hard. I mean, there's just a lot of hard out there. Politics, like all the things that are going on around us can really have an impact on us and influence us in negative ways if we're not careful, like Ryan said. So Ryan, we were on a call recently with Brendon Burchard, and he talked about reasons why people want to quit. And there were 3 main reasons. Do you want to share those with us?
Yeah, Jacqueline, we're so fortunate. I remember when I first saw Brendon speak many, many years ago, prior to him working with our company, I didn't know who he was. And I was just instantly drawn to him, drawn to his energy, drawn to how he influences people in a major positive way. So Brendon Burchard is frankly one of my favorite people in the world. His Growth Day app is just so helpful and so amazing. And we're just lucky enough that we get to have a call with him like every other month. And he talked about these 3 reasons as to why people want to quit, the 3 C's. But before that, Jacqueline, when you were talking, I had some ideas that came up that I had to share because, we're talking about noise and we're talking about stress, and you're 100% right. Like there's always going to be problems in life. There's always going to be these things, but sometimes I think we have to question ourselves. Why do we think most of the time stress is bad? Because we know we have to have stress in our life in good ways as well. So if we can start with just a reframe, like stress isn't always bad when we're lifting weights, for example. That's a good stress on our muscles that causes growth. So can we challenge ourselves to be okay with stress and to be okay with change? Because that quote, the only thing in life that's constant is change. Why are we as humans so sometimes opposed to that change? And how can we just go with the flow and say, you know what, change is going to happen. Stress is going to happen. How can I just be okay with it? Right? How can I make change good? And how can I make it so that I don't want to quit when these things come up? But Brendan really nailed it. And I think our listeners would probably resonate with these couple of things. So I wanted to share these. He called them the 3 C's. The 3 C's as to why people want to quit. Number 1 is complaining. Like, it makes so much sense. And he said specifically complaining about the things we can't control, Jacqueline.
Mm-hmm.
What is the point? But at the same time, we're all so guilty. Like, we all complain about things we can't control, which makes our stress levels go up, which makes the noise even louder, which makes this snowball effect of all this. So if we can take a step back and number 1, realize if I can't control it, I shouldn't even worry about it. And if I can't control it, I certainly shouldn't complain about it, because then guess what? I'm going to attract other people into my world that are going to complain about it. And we're going to have these pity parties. And all we're going to do is complain, and we're not going to progress at all. And we're just going to say, you know what? We should quit. Yeah. So the first C as to why people want to quit is just complaining, and really complaining or focusing on what they can't control. And we know Ben Kinney, our partner, talks a lot about this as well. What do you think about that, Jacqueline?
Well, when you were talking about complaining, see, I see complaining as judgment. So it's like your own judgment about whatever it is, fill in the blank. And I read this book a few years back that really changed the way I interacted with complaining and judgment. It's called The Judgment Detox by Gabby Bernstein. And what I learned by reading that book is that judgment is actually a defense mechanism. And so if you are insecure or fearful, uncertain, what shows up typically is thoughts that, of judgment. And that is really how you're protecting yourself. And how that manifests is through complaining. So it's actually when you are finding that you're complaining, if you kind of follow the breadcrumb to the root of that, you're probably actually afraid. Or if someone is complaining to you, they're probably afraid, insecure, right? Or uncertain about their future. And so how can we, I guess, be there and have empathy for ourselves in those moments? And then how can we have empathy without partnering with people who are complaining to us? And I think if we look at it from that lens of, okay, this person actually has fear, then maybe we can ask them some deeper questions and help them have a real conversation. So instead of complaining about Sally or changes in the industry or whatever, we can actually say like, gosh, Ryan, do you think that you might be a little afraid? Are you feeling kind of afraid of what's going to happen? And then that completely changes the conversation. And now I can actually be there for you, and I can help you talk through the real issue instead of the surface issue that you're making it about. And maybe we can actually shift our perspective in that moment. So that was the thought that came to mind when you were talking about complaining and how we can maybe manage that so that we're not just like gaslighting ourselves or other people or shutting them down or shutting ourselves down, because I know that what we resist persists. And so if we are complaining, dig into why and try to figure out what you need in that moment so that you can actually be there for yourself and for others.
I like how you said so that you can be there in that moment. It seems like so many times, Jacqueline, I'm complaining, I'm judging. And as you said that, I just I saw myself in the mirror. Like, I'm only judging others because of my insecurities. I'm only complaining because I have the problem. I'm complaining about the thing that I need to work on. So oftentimes when we're verbalizing these things that we're complaining about, we should probably just take that phone and record ourselves and play that back for ourselves 3 times so that we can say, oh, shoot, you know what? I'm complaining about that person, but these are the actions I need to do. I need to change. So it goes back to just focusing on what you control. Look, I can't control you, but I'll tell you what, I can control me. And if I recognize something that makes me insecure, I got to change that with me. Because the second C, the second C that Brendan talked about was comparison. So you just nailed it. I'm going to want to quit, Jacqueline, because, well, dang it, I've been working so hard and I sold X amount of homes this year, but frickin' Katie sold twice that. Dang her. I've been working out for 3 years and I did this, but Jimmy over there, he's way farther than me. right? I've been meditating every day, but look at so-and-so over there. They're way more enlightened than me. And I'm comparing myself and I'm like, you know what? Forget it. I'm just going to quit. Why meditate? Why work out? Why even try? They're so much better than me. That's so stupid.
Yeah. Well, there's so many things too nowadays because we're on social media. So I can literally open my phone right now
Yeah.
and I can find someone who's being a better mom, someone who is, has better health and fitness than me, someone who's making better meals, someone who's living a better life, going on better vacations, better house, has better clothes, has a cuter outfit, she's skinnier, she sells more houses, like she has more money, her husband's better than my husband, no one's better than my
And
husband.
and this is true. Nobody's better than Phil.
But it's just like at our fingertips at any second. And it's like you're just scrolling and making all these like judgments, right? And comparison. And it's just like really, really unhealthy at times.
Do you see how quickly that happened, Jacqueline? Like in 10 seconds, you just listed off 10 things that we can compare ourselves to that make ourselves feel less than. And I just spent 10 freaking hours all day trying to make myself better. And then I hopped on these stupid apps and I influenced myself in a negative way and I robbed myself of all that hard work I put in that day. You realize that, like, you're hopping on these social medias and you're saying, oh, like all those things you just listed off, you just rob yourself of all your hard work. Like, stop doing that. So influences are so important.
Yeah.
And yeah, life is hard, but guess what? It's always going to be hard. Y'all seen those stupid memes? Like, choose your dang hard. Like, yeah, it's hard to get up, but yeah, it's hard to be the rest, right? So you're going to choose your hard. So number one was complaining. We got to stop complaining about the things we can't control. Otherwise, we're just going to keep complaining ourselves into this hole where we're going to quit. Number two, we got to stop comparing ourselves, right? You got to stop comparing yourself. Brendan said, what is my race today? What's my race today?
Love
and
it.
number three, the last C that Brendan talked about why people want to quit is they catastrophize. And I like that word, catastrophizing.
I can't say it, so I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, catastrophizing. Go ahead and spell that one out. But what we do is we make the worst case scenario, right? We get a little piece of information and it's like, oh my gosh, game over. I should just quit, right? In fact, that reminds me of the story, Jacqueline, that we haven't talked about this yet, but maybe we will one day in more depth. I was diagnosed last year with this kidney failure thing that was super hard for me, right? It was like the hardest health challenge in my life. And there was 2 months where I actually thought I had like 15 or 20 years left to live. And I was actually super scared. And there was nothing I could do about it. I realized that. It was like waiting for tests, waiting for these things. And I was in my office crying one day and I couldn't pick up my phone to call anybody. I couldn't do any of my work. I was in my office crying and I was like, I just need to call somebody. So I called Ben. And Ben listened to me for like a minute or two. And do you know what his response was, Jacqueline? Just so messed up. Like, this is Ben for you. And he just nailed it. He goes, well, do you want me to just call Bentley, your son, and just tell him that it's over? Just tell him that like his dad's gone and life's over and that's that. And I was like, what? He's like, well, are you going to die? I was like, no, I'm not going to freaking die. He's like, exactly. You're not going to die. You're going to be fine. Stop thinking the worst case scenario with this, Ryan. You're thinking so far ahead of things. He's like, just stop that. I was catastrophizing. And it turned out, guess what? I'm here. I'm okay. I broke that. I'm fine. But I was majorly catastrophizing and I was ready to go home and cry for many days, Jacqueline, and I was so ready to quit. But Ben helped me stop catastrophizing in that moment.
Yeah, that's huge. And I mean, health things are scary, so I don't want to minimize that at all. And one of the things that Brandon touched on that call was how emotions actually, I can't remember how many seconds they last like in our body, but they're like a physiological response. And then the thoughts and the meaning that we attach to them, that's what gives us our feelings. And feelings are important. And what happens sometimes is they are those thoughts of like you were catastrophizing. Did I say it right? Yeah, I think I said it.
Yeah.
So those thoughts that you were applying to the emotions you were having about this, it was giving them meaning. And you were thinking of the worst case scenario, which was bringing up all these feelings, right?
Yeah.
And so he was talking about how so many people, they just let their feelings rule. And I think that for a long, long time, we were, raised, I think, in a lot of ways, like certain generations, like they did numb feelings, right? Like we didn't talk about our feelings, we didn't talk about our
Yeah.
emotions. And the pendulum has maybe swung in the complete opposite direction now, where it's like, oh, we're almost like putting our feelings on this pedestal. And there's all the things about like only do what feels right and only do what feels good and all of those things. And it's like, I remember years ago saying, like, I don't want to let my feelings rule because my feelings have kind of made a mess in my life at the time, and my feelings are fallible. They're not always correct. And so
Yeah.
it's not that they're not valid or they don't need, like, feelings are kind of like a gauge, and they can definitely tell us some things that we need in our life or some things that we need to do or stop doing. But there's a book that I like reading whenever I go to the beach or camping. It's called 101 Essays That'll Change Your Life, I think it is.
Huh.
And I just posted this the other day. I want to share this if I can read it, just a little excerpt from that. It
Please.
says, uncomfortable feelings can actually indicate that you're on the right path. And it says, discomfort is what happens when you are on the precipice of change. Unfortunately, we often confuse it for unhappiness and cope with the latter while running from the former. It usually takes a bit of discomfort to break through to a new understanding, to release a limiting belief, to motivate ourselves to create real change. Discomfort is a signal, one that is often very helpful. And so I think that, kind of to sum up the conversation here, we need to change our relationship with discomfort and with these things that cause us normally anxiety because of how we're looking at them, and we think that they're an indication that we're on the wrong path. And so that's where that feeling of we want to quit, right?
Yeah.
And if we can change and go, oh wow, if I was in a bubble and had zero discomfort in my life, it would probably mean that I'm not growing, that I'm complacent, that I'm not really impacting or influencing anyone, right? Because in order to have influence and impact, you're going to have discomfort because you're out there living life. You're in the arena, so to speak.
Yeah.
And if we can just reframe this season and really capture the fact that discomfort can be and often is an indication that you are on the right path and that you are actually going through some level of transformation in your life, and that it is a green light that you're on the right path in many, many ways. And so I think, that's kind of what I'm leaning into in this season.
Yeah.
And I'm not perfect at it, but that's kind of where I fall back to, is like, discomfort for me means I'm doing something right. It means I'm changing, I'm growing. I might fail at a lot of things. I might make a mess, but at least I'm in the ring and I'm trying. And that's all we can do. I'm in the race.
That's right. That's right. In the race, Brendan said, what is my race today? Bold, right? My race. What is my race today? You nailed it, Jacqueline. I hope our listeners just rewind like those last few minutes. Listen to that like 5 times. Jacqueline just nailed that. If it scares you, keep going. If you're uncomfortable, keep going. You said it's a signal. Like if you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm uncomfortable, but guess what? That means that's your sign. That means keep going, right? Brendan said emotions last just 60 seconds is what he said. 60 seconds, and then they turn into a feeling.
Yep.
The feeling comes from the meaning we gave it, right? So we have to be very careful about the meaning we gave that feeling. That feeling could be gone in 60 seconds, but the problem is that feeling happens, right, Jacqueline? And we hold on to that dang thing all day or even longer.
Yeah.
Right? Even longer. And Brendan, and we'll end with this, he said, your feelings are less important than your future. Your feelings are less important than your future. Don't let that 60-second feeling ruin that bright future that you have, right? Feel those emotions. Just feel yourself. Remember, emotions are energy in motion. If you don't feel those emotions, they're going to get stuck. This whole thing about, oh, men don't cry. That's how I grew up, Jacqueline. No, screw all that. Dang it. The more I cry, the better I feel. The more I cry, the lighter I am. The more I cry, the better I become in my life because I'm just removing all these things that don't serve me anymore. So men, it's okay to cry, dang it. It's okay to cry.
We got to do an episode on that now.
Jacqueline, this was a really good episode. So thank you for talking with me about how the influence of stress in our life can really cause us to want to quit. I have wanted to quit so many times, but with your help, with Ben's help, with our partner's help, I have not, and I will not, dang it. And I hope our listeners got some tips today that will help them from quitting. And right when you feel like quitting is right when that breakthrough is coming. It's right when that breakthrough is coming.
You do want to quit one thing, right, Ryan? Complaining.
That is right. Quit the complaining, quit the comparing, and quit the dang catastrophizing.
Quit the right things.
That's right. That's right.
And do not quit listening to our podcast. Please continue to share, engage. We love hearing from you. Ryan, let's wrap it up.
That's right. Share the podcast, subscribe, hit that like button. And as always, you can find us online, winmategive.com. If you're on social media like Facebook or Instagram, it's Jacqueline Ray Smith, RAE, and Ryan Park Gregg. Send us a message. Let us know that you're with us. And until next time, thanks for listening.
Bye, everyone.